Welcome to 30 Minutes of Faith. We're going to do something a little different today and show you how we put this show together and who works behind the scenes and all of the effort that it takes as a team to make this happen. I wanted to explain to you how this show came about. When we were down on K Street, we decided we'd like to get the faith leaders' faces and bios and their lives out in front of the people in Greater Sacramento. And so we talked about doing a show where we could interview people and we could show and tell. And at the time we said, let's call it 30 minutes and then see if CBS will sue us. And then finally arrived at 30 Minutes of Faith. We've tried to cover all of the different religions in town. We are a diversified city. We've tried to get men and women. We've tried to cover cultures and backgrounds and all of those other sorts of things. So now we're down the road a ways. We've been doing 30 Minutes of Faith for some years. We'll do it some more years yet to come. And now we'd like to show you how we put the show together and who's behind the scenes and what's going on in the studio and how it all works.
So I drove to his place in Sacramento for 2 years on the weekends. And I was the wrench. And he would tell me where things went. And the day, naturally, we finished the car. I listed him as the owner because I knew it was so important to him in that little bit that when we won the race, I looked over and he was crying. And this is a man who just can't see. But he knew we won the race from the audio.
Yeah. No, I didn't.
I always thought of compassion as we are caretakers.
Okay.
For that if we take care of that responsibly and with integrity, then it will be handed down to the next generation, and so on. And we may not be able to ever probably see the end of homelessness, but I think in time we will, because of that compassion.
Okay, we're back at the table. You've taken a look at the studio and get a little wider look at what we're doing here. Now we're talking to Owen Burgess, who is the chief editor and the guy who generally makes it all look beautiful, right?
Hey, thanks for the kind words. I do my best.
How long have you been doing this?
Oh man, 7 years now.
7 years
It's
now.
been awesome. Yeah.
And where'd you get your start? I mean, were you just sitting in high school or college and said, this is what I want to do?
I was watching Lord of the Rings and I just fell in love with it. I was like, how did they do all that on Lord of the Rings? And so I had to go to film school. Went down to film school in Ventura. Did that for 3 years. It was awesome year-round program, so we didn't even stop. We just went, made films for 3 years. And then I luckily got a call from Sharita Walters, who I was a friend with at the time. She said there's an opening at a TV station up here in Sacramento. So I was like, I didn't have any other job opportunities at the time, so I took it, came back to Sacramento, my hometown, and been doing it for 7 years now here at the station.
Well, look, in everybody's life, there's somebody who makes us look good. And for 30 Minutes of Faith and the rest of the Sacramento Faith TV, you're usually the guy who can do that. And, all of the magical stuff that can be done with television and what we do these days.
Yeah, it's awesome. It takes a crew, though. I mean, it's
Sure.
awesome having Tim and Ron, like Ron floor directing and making sure everything was running right, and then Tim was on the camera operating, and it takes a team effort, and so we've been lucky to have people that volunteer and all these things to make 30 Minutes of Faith happen.
And good equipment, because it's changing daily, right?
Yeah, it is. The technology is constantly changing, and so keeping up with that, is a part of our job as well, making sure we have HD and all those things so that, YouTube now is in HD, so being able to deliver an HD format for everybody online, and that's a big part of it.
How do you know it's changing, Owen? Do you read magazines, or you see it on the internet, or your buddies at the old film school, or how do you know things are changing?
There's a variety of things. One of the things I always stay in touch with is the Capital Film Arts Alliance. And I go down there and they have a meeting every month where they get all the people that are professionals in the industry. Yeah, all the people in the industry that are in Sacramento show up, and you can just network with people, and they have like a speaker that comes up and gives information about some, it could be directing or it could be editing or anything like that. But I always just keep my, finger on the pulse of the industry, kind of knowing what's coming around, and online is a big part of it too. Just, checking, especially the big companies like Sony and Canon and these guys. They're always coming out with new equipment, and so just keeping your hand on the pulse on that, and just researching and always staying on top of it. So,
Does the size of the studio matter?
for 30 Minutes of Faith, this studio that we're using right now is more than sufficient. But we do here at Grace Studios have another room that's much bigger if you needed an audience or anything like that for a studio. Have it more like an Oprah show or something like that, where you have audience reacting live. We have the space for that, so we have options here at Grace Studios.
Good flexibility, and the faith groups can come and mingle if there's 2 of us or if there's 200 of us. Probably.
Yeah, exactly. It wouldn't really matter. We have options for either way. Like, we have this small studio that we're in right now for 30 Minutes of Faith, where we have a more intimate TV show, and then out there in the room right next door, we have seating for probably about 100, 150.
Now, on Sac Faith TV and the editing purposes of putting programs in and directing all those things, in 7 more years, we'd like to be going 24 hours a day, right?
Oh yeah, that would be awesome.
Of the people in Greater Sacramento.
Yeah, exactly. The more, the better, and the more diversity too, the better as well.
Do you learn a lot as you edit?
Oh man, I learned so much. It's amazing. What more than learning, I'm inspired, because just all the stories I get to edit together, and all the stories of people coming to their faith or the faith that they're already in. It's just unbelievable, and it shows how close we all are. Like, we're all going through the same journey together on this planet, and the faith and God is so strong in everybody's life. So it's really inspiring to see those stories.
Plato said, be kind to everybody. The guy you're talking to might have it worse than you.
That's a good one.
That's the way it goes. Now, as we leave your little segment, one of the things we'd like the viewers to see is maybe a look at the camera, a look at the equipment, a look at some of the other sorts of things. So we'll ask you to edit that in,
All right.
and then we'll talk with Tim.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, John.
Okay, we're back to a third segment with 30 Minutes of Faith, and we're with Tim Steele, and I was just telling him that my great-grandmother is a Steele, and was one of the first babies born, and when the pioneers were coming to Deseret and the Oregon Trail and making their way through all of that. Now, you're obviously an involved and important technician in all of this to make all these things happen. How did you come to this?
Actually, it came through. I was already doing some work out of this church with the media team here, and when the studio moved here to this location, I ended up getting on the team, meeting Ron, meeting Owen, and so now I work with them and do some camera work for the studio, and maybe get some things set up for each show, and it's just been a blast so far, so I'm really glad to be here.
We're grateful to you because everybody understands that it takes a team to make it go.
Oh, that's for
and
sure.
the better the team, the better it goes.
Mm-hmm.
What's your background? Are you a Sacramento boy?
I am. I grew up in this area and pretty much stayed here my whole life. I grew up in Orangevale for about 10 years, and then I moved to Roseville with my family, and I stayed here, went to college over at William Jessup University, and only for about half a year I did move out to Missouri for a while for some ministry out there, and then I came back and been staying here so far.
Where'd you graduate from high school?
Roseville High School.
Ah.
Yeah, right, just
Good
10 minutes
old
away.
Long time
Yeah.
Roseville.
Yeah.
Cool deal. You have a family?
I do. I just got married in July of 2012, and so I have a wife right now, and it's been an amazing year and a half, and just so blessed with an amazing wife.
I've been married 47 years, and I married the girl that I began to really like in 8th grade, and it changes your whole life and is a wonderful thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, will you be doing this kind of work in TV and other things 20 years from now?
I always hope to at least have some involvement with it. It's such a passion of mine. I started doing media as a hobby in my junior high days, and I've never gotten away from it fully. My studies were more in theology and that kind of stuff for my undergraduate work. Right now I'm finishing my master's degree in business, and I've been using that to apply to some of my media business involvement right now. But you know, I don't know for sure if I'll be doing it full time, but I always want to have my feet wet. I always want to know what's going on with the industry.
And so if you could, would you rather pastor somewhere? Would you like to have a pulpit and be involved?
I'm open to that, and I would love to do that. I'm just waiting, you know, on God's calling on my life and seeing where He leads me. I might even be interested in doing overseas mission work somewhere down the road if that's something that God speaks to my wife and I. And we've already kind of talked about that a little bit as well. So
Our next door neighbors have young adult children who are in Mexico doing missionary work at an orphanage. And they've been there about a year and a half, and it's a 3-year mission, which is a little lengthy.
Oh, yeah.
You know, some go for 9 months or a year or 18 months. They went for 3 years. They're having a wonderful, wonderful time. And then down a little bit further is a man and woman who are older who went to Africa to help with wells, because he's been he's a plumber, but he has a business that does wells and a whole bunch of other things.
that's awesome.
And they went there just to teach the African people how they could make water quicker, clearer, fresher, faster.
And that's so important.
It's
Yeah.
extremely important, and it's as God would want us to do, to serve one another. So what's the hardest thing you do in all of this, and what's the easiest?
The hardest thing, I guess, is, you know, with, as you had mentioned earlier, growing technology, you always have to adjust to that. And there's a little bit of a learning curve when new technology comes around. And sometimes...
Relearn.
Yeah. Relearn. Unlearn what you have learned, as Yoda says.
Well said.
I'm a big Star Wars fan, too. So, but yeah, I don't know. I think sometimes just that, or, you know, sometimes there's little technical glitches that you have to get over. And it's just, you know, a matter of team coming together and resolving the issue, and then we all learn from it. So
Work it through.
yeah.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much. I
Thanks for
appreciate
your willingness to be part of the team.
Of course.
It
My
matters
pleasure.
to us. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
And we're back with 30 Minutes of Faith. This is your stand-in host, Ron Herman, interviewing our regular host, Jon Fish. We're going to turn the tables a little bit on Jon. We've been doing almost 60 episodes now over the last few years, but you know what? We haven't had a chance to visit with our host. Jon, it's good to have you here on 30 Minutes.
Gee, I'm really glad to be here.
We'd like you to tell us a little bit about yourself. I know I've known you for several years now with the Interfaith Council as the president. Tell us how you found yourself in that position.
Let's see, I came to the Interfaith Council via Habitat for Humanity a dozen years ago, and then Interfaith, Light and Power, and the environmental things, and it just sort of funneled down to this, and got elected to the board, and here I am.
As the president of the Interfaith Council of Sacramento, I, being a director and working with a lot of the studio stuff that we do and out in the field shoots, I come across you all the time. I'm out filming at the Sikh temple, at the Muslim mosque, everywhere else in Sacramento. And as I'm going to film, I always seem to find you walking in. As the president, what is your job title? What do you do as the president? What do you find that the needs of Sacramento that you fulfill?
Well, I try to support the faiths, and they send it, you know, I could go to 4 places a day if I had the time to do it, because there's that many things going on. But I just try to get to the places, and I usually do that. You know, I pace myself. I do have a life. We've got 5 children and 21 grandchildren, and I have a lot of things to do. But I try to get to the other places 3 or 4 or 5 times a week, and I get to the Friday night services and the Saturday Sabbaths and the Sunday worship services. So I just try to be a present. And then once we get going, people say, well, will you co-sponsor us, or will you help us, or will you do this? And so we jump in.
Can you give us a quick outline or a mission statement of what the Interfaith Council of Sacramento is all about?
Let me tell you what it's not about, first of all. It's not about politics. If somebody wants us to do something political, we always say no thank you. But if it has to do with humanity, things we would learn in the house of worship, how to care for each other and take care of each other and look out for each other and shelter and feed and provide warmth, spiritually or temporally, we're all about all of that.
Mm-hmm. And if you're a faith here in Sacramento that isn't already part of the Interfaith Council and would like to learn more, where could they go to find that information and get in contact with you?
www.sacramentointerfaith.org or president at sacramentointerfaith.org.
Very good. Now a little bit personal note. Jon, we always talk about the people in this seat telling us about their faith. What faith do you belong to? And tell us a little bit about it.
I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but most people know us as the Mormons. I was born and raised in the Mormon Church. I'm 6th generation. My great-great-greats joined the church in Europe, came across the plains with Brigham Young and all of those other sorts of things. I started my life in a little tiny town of 200 people in southern Utah. My father was killed in an accident. My mother decided to take her children to a bigger city. I eventually met my wife in a bigger city where we graduated from high school, and then out into the world we went.
Jon, I'm going to ask you a question that actually made my mouth drop when I heard the answer, but I think our audience would like to hear this. How large is your family, Jon? How many kids and grandkids do you have?
Well, we've got 5 children who are all happily married, and we have 21 grandchildren. I'm one of 7 brothers and sisters. My mother's the 16th of 21, and it's not a polygamous family. My father's the 3rd of 9. So we set the table pretty well.
Very busy family. Jon, if I could ask you to wave a magic wand and change something in this world for the good, what would that be?
I'd like us to be more tolerant of each other, and you know what? You can tolerate a mosquito, so I don't mean it that way, but it shouldn't matter to me what your culture or your background is. It should matter to me the kind of person you are and what you'll do to help and to serve. If you're a killer or a bank robber, I should still be able to find a way to visit you and help you and hold your hand and help you through. If you're the richest guy on the planet, that shouldn't matter to me. We should be busily engaged helping one another. So we just need to be tolerant of each other. We shouldn't care what the color of our skin is or where we came from. You know, some people say, well, they live over there. The old phrase when I was a kid, they lived on the wrong side of the tracks. I walked to school with a girl who was shunned, Ron. She was shunned by everybody. I walked there to school with her because my mother made me. She said, you've got to treat her better. You can at least walk to school with her. When I'd get to school, I would avoid her the rest of the day. Then she moved away, and I went to a basketball tournament about a year later and found her the head cheerleader at the biggest high school in Salt Lake City.
Wow.
And she went from this bogus, the other side of the track situation to a superstar sort of thing, you know, and she taught me the world, and I dated her for a while after that and all of those other sorts of things. So we've got to be more tolerant of one another and more compassionate and understanding and accepting of each other.
That's fantastic. And now to you, the audience. If you have a pastor or faith leader that you think would like to come on our show and tell the audience about your faith and your beliefs, we want to hear from you. Jon, why don't you tell them how they can get in touch with us?
Well, I think the fastest way from my perspective is to just send an email at president@sacramentointerfaith.org, and then I'll shoot that off to you, and then you will make the calls and get busy chasing all of that. Or they can go to sacramentointerfaith.org on the website, look at the SAC TV connection, the SAC Faith TV, and that links up to all the other things we do. So there's a lot of different ways, but we'll make it happen fast. As soon as we hear, you'll hear.
That's awesome. And you, as the audience, please come and visit us. If you're not watching us on Comcast, SureWest, and soon to be AT&T UVerse, you can go to sacramentofaithtv.org and watch our simulcast from there and learn more about our station. Thank you very much and have a great afternoon.
So over the years, we've done 40 or 50 episodes and hope to do at least that many more. We would like to take you back a little bit and look at some of the highlights of some of the people we've interviewed and the interesting things that we've learned from their lives.
6 years. You can do anything you want to do if you're following God. I don't want to let this pass me. Talking about God is fine. Going to church every Sunday is fine. Talking about what God has done is fine. But you see, faith and belief is on the same side of a coin. You got faith on one side of a coin and belief on the other one. And somewhere they ought to tie in. Your faith kicks in with the faith you have in you with God, but you got to listen to that. That's where we are. That's what I believe.
Two things. I want to be able to share the love of Christ to the whole world. That would be primary. The second thing would be I want to be able to give, as long as we're here on this earth, I want to give as many children the opportunity to have an education as you possibly can. That would be my life's vision and work if I could do that.
Well, you know about Jericho,
Right.
and Jericho is the advocacy for justice. And I think that probably my biggest passion is social justice. Live in a just world.
And why? Why did you come to that? What makes that passionate for you?
Because people, you know, deserve things, I think. Like, old people deserve a decent old age. They've put in years. The children deserve to have a roof over their head and food in their stomachs. I think that's because we're part of each other, and we have to look at each person as part of ourselves.
Well,
Why don't-
to answer that question, I'd have to answer it, you know, by faith, in the sense that I'm a believer, and I believe in faith and believing in God and His bigness, and then so I like to consider myself being more of an optimist, and so I like to believe that we're going to see a turnaround, and I'm praying for revival, or praying for outpouring of God's Spirit, or praying for a great awakening across America. If I just look at everything the way it is right now and the way our, you know, society is going, it looks bleak. But I'm believing by faith that there's going to be a turnaround, and I believe that I have a part to play in it, as well as every other pastor. So.
Seems like the world is quite broken down in the divisions.
It does.
I would feel like if we could just learn to love people for who they are, not try to take someone else's ground, occupy what we have been given, and be less judgmental of people. The judgmentalism and the divisions are what I think our adversary tries to bring at us, and our God wants us to come together and be one under His tent and umbrella.
No.
Well, you know, serving a mission as a young 19, 20-year-old guy is just a wonderful opportunity to put God first. You know, as a 19, 20-year-old guy, the last thing normally you're thinking about is putting yourself second and thinking of God. You know, you're just wanting to go out and do all sorts of other things. So I think for me it was a wonderful opportunity to put God first and really get to know people, God's children. You know, we were out there in the rough part of town. You know, there were unemployed people, there were kids that were getting abused, there were broken families, and just to be a part of that and to share the gospel of Jesus Christ to those people. And, you know, for those that embraced it and increased their faith in God, and to see how they could, you know, change their circumstances over time, you know, through the love and the Spirit of God in their lives, was just a big testimony builder for me. And I was able to see that, you know, I lived in a privileged situation. You know, my parents loved each other, had good jobs, and so, you know, we didn't want for anything. And so in some cases you sort of look at folks over there that are less fortunate as, you know, oh, they caused it all themselves. But, you know, when you go on a mission and you get to meet and see people, you realize that, you know, that's not the case. In many cases, you know, unfortunate circumstances led to that. And so just to be a part of helping people to change completely changes your life. You come back older, more mature, and, you know, you become a little less selfish.
Well, I think it's a lot of things. The Christian upbringing is one of the things. I remember my mom asking me a number of years ago, why do you keep doing this work? And I just looked at her, and I don't know where this came from, but I said, well, you know, it was all the years of you telling me what it was like to grow up in the Depression and how your mother and your family took in people in rural North Dakota off the train to feed them and house them because they had no place else. And I think that is part I mean, I just feel like it's in my bones. But the other thing is the one-to-one contact. I really think that, you know, everything we do makes a difference in a person's life, or has the potential to do that. And so everything that I do, or everything that, what keeps me going is knowing that whatever contact I have with people, you know, might have some benefit to them down the road.
Might lighten the load.
Might lighten the load.
Okay, let's talk about North Dakota.
And actually, in the interim, it it becomes such a gift to me. You know, that saying of you always get more than you give, and you know, I always think I go into things, the helping people, with the idea of helping people, but I'm always so surprised at, you know, what a gift it is to me, coming back.
This has been an important undertaking for all of us at 30 Minutes of Faith and with Sacramento Faith Television, and we hope it will continue for a good long time. We need help from our community. We not only need people who will sit with us, but we're hoping to expand our television channel, the programming, the shows, the people, all of those things that will make our community better and more enlightened. So we invite you to join with us. As I have said, you can hit president@sacramentointerfaith.org. I'll pass the word along to these people. They'll be calling you up 10 minutes after we get the email. So please, come and join with us. We'd love to have you.